campers come in here, they leave food around, the bears get the smell of it, and that's it.
Well, this is different. This bum's eating his victims. That thing seems to know what we're thinking.
A grizzly is an animal, Kelly. Don't give it human qualities.
See, he doesn't understand that we're dealing with a highly intelligent beast.
We were the first picture in after Jaws to deal with animal horror. And, you know, people just flocked to the movie, and it caught on. It has a cult following, you know, even to this day. Harvey Flaxman and his family took a trip west in a Winnebago just to see the country and visit with us in California. Well, when they arrived here, we were sitting around dinner one evening here in this house, and they started telling us about their trip.
I was on my way to California with my wife and my 2 children, excuse me, and we were traveling. We decided to go by car, and we stopped off in Yellowstone National Park, and we had camping gear, and I went to set up my camping gear, and I was asked not to do that because there was a grizzly in the area, and they wouldn't accept any people with soft tents, only if you had hard tents, you know, that you were in an RV. And we went and we did that, and I was lying down at night and thinking about the grizzly, and I said, whoa, this could make a movie.
My eyes started bugging out of my head. I said, what a great idea for a movie.
They had just released Jaws many months before, or just before, just as I was leaving to LA. And I said, oh, we've got Jaws on land.
I wrote a scene by scene by scene outline, probably about 30 pages long, of what I thought would make a good movie. Overnighted it to Harvey on the East Coast.
This all happened within days. I mean, the film was written in 8 days. I wrote it in 8 days. My father passed away. I had to go back to New York City, came back, typed it up, and that was it.
I then took it and rewrote it, which was what our deal was. You know, we would both do the final script. And it was an excellent collaboration, and we came up with the script that is now known as Grizzly. Billy Girdler and I had split after we made Project Kill. We split amicably. We both took offices at the Goldwyn studio in Hollywood. He was upstairs, I was downstairs. And, you know, we talked, we had lunch together every day. And one day he stepped into my office, my new office, and he saw this script of Grizzly sitting on the desk. He said, what's this? I said, well, that's a new script that Harvey Flaxman and I just wrote. And he says, what's it about? I told him what it was about, and I could see him almost shaking, you know, that he really wanted this. And, you know, he knew what I was capable of in writing. And he said, can I read it? I gritted my teeth and I said, sure, yeah, take it upstairs, read it. And he went upstairs and read it, came back about an hour and a half later and said, I want to make this movie. I can get this movie made. And he said, if I get it made, I'm going to direct it.
And so he went to Montero, who he knew, and he was a man who said, okay, let's go and let's do this. And he was a distributor, and a domestic distributor, and that's how the film got financed.
We wanted to get it out there into production as soon as possible because I knew that if I didn't get this picture made, somebody else was going to think of it and do it.
It had to be done then because that was the timing, and there were other companies that were not in production, but were developing Grizzly type projects.
And 3 weeks later, we were in Georgia doing pre-production on the movie.
My agent called me and he said they want you to do this movie and they're going to pay us good dough and you're getting on the plane tomorrow. And I said, could I see a script? And he said, it's Jaws. He said, they'll give you a script, get on the plane. And they did, and I jumped right in, and we went to Clayton, Georgia.
The picture was supposed to be a hot summer day. I can't remember whether it was Labor Day or 4th of July weekend. And in the whole movie, the script is written as a hot summer day. Campers are coming out in their t-shirts and shorts and sandals and everything.
And I went out in the helicopters, the helicopter, and we shot the canyons and we shot, we shot the scenery so that we would get all the colors of the fall because we knew we were going to be shooting in the winter.
It was a cold, blizzardy, snowy period in Georgia, especially up in the mountains.
We didn't start shooting until the middle of November, and we didn't stop shooting until middle of December. So we had a lot to do. We needed to create that concept.
So every scene we did that had snow in it, we went ahead of time with heat machines, blowers, getting rid of the snow.
And all the other shooting, if you notice that a lot of the shooting takes place straight ahead and not up, not revealing that we no longer had leaves on the trees.
It was the biggest snows I think we'd had in years. And it was always so cold. I used to eat like 4 breakfasts in the morning to keep warm. I was like about that big then. And I would eat pancakes and waffles and eggs and sweet rolls. And I don't know, I would just pour the food down just to keep warm. And lost 3 pounds during the making of the movie.
We had to divide up the work because if we were going to do this movie in 4 weeks, Billy could not handle the whole thing.
When we saw that we were going to really fall behind, because it was only a 4-week shoot, so we said, well, we've got to do something to make this happen.
We had an arrangement that I would do the bear stuff, Harvey Flaxman would direct the extras, doing all of the ranger stuff, the rangers going through the woods, hunting for the bear, carrying the rifles, all of that stuff. The dogs barking, the hounds and all of that. Harvey did all of that stuff. I did all of the stuff with a live bear.
And I even made up some of the dialogue. We didn't have all the dialogue. So they should give me writing credit, I think.
I arranged for a bear to be shipped from the state of Washington to Georgia. This is the only bear that we could find that had all of the things that we needed for animal horror. And so the bear was trucked across the country with the trainer in his trailer and arrived in Georgia in pretty good condition.
The bear was named Teddy, and he was the largest grizzly in captivity.
The grizzly bear and I and our crew had a very special kind of relationship.
This was a ferocious bear. He would literally just slice your head off. Bear's claws are razor sharp.
This grizzly had no training at all. He did what he wanted to do, which was eat about a half of a horse every day, I noticed. He was good at that.
Although I have a feeling Teddy wasn't that wild, but they perpetrated the myth that Teddy was a real wild bear that would eat you up.
But he was so gigantic. His eyes were, I think, 13 inches apart. So then his head is, it's almost like a small elephant's head, and he was 11 feet tall when he stood up. He was awesome.
If you were close to the bear without an electric wire between you, he would eat you because he was a meat-eating bear.
And they would electrify the forest area around where we were going to shoot, and then the crew would be in a portable, small movable electrical fence, because the only thing Teddy was scared of was being shot.
What I remember most about was being close to him, but always this little wire between us, and everybody was warning us about not stepping over the wire or getting too close to the wire because Teddy was wild.
Every time the bear would come toward us, the trainer would yell, green line, and Teddy would stop dead in his tracks, because that's how they trained him, with an electronic fence.
Every time we finished, we had to bait. When I say we, the trainer had to bait the bear into his cage so that we could shout all clear to the crew and cast to come out of their hiding places. Everybody was afraid of this bear.
He's not a dog and he's not a pet. It doesn't work for affection. You don't pat him on the head. We don't touch him at all. And he doesn't touch us, and that's the way we like it. He will hurt you.
One time someone shot a shotgun off by accident and scared him.
Teddy goes wild and growls and moves. The camera is thrown to the ground and we all run for our lives, and Teddy runs to his cell. He had a truck with his cage in it, and that's where he was frightened of the sound. So he wasn't running at us, he was running for his own safety.
All the bear could do was run this way and run this way. That's all the bear was trained to do, except look like a bear. It was an untrained bear. So every time you see the bear in the picture looking like he's roaring, ready to kill somebody, he's really trying to get a piece of meat on a stick.
To get the bear to come to me, I would throw him bread that was in my jacket. And he would get it, and then he would come, and then he would come, then they could intercut.
It worked beautifully. We did the same thing with fresh fish across the field, and the bear would chase after it. So every time we needed shots from the rear of seeing the bear running, he was always chasing something that we set up.
We had a lot of problems filming the bear. It was extremely dangerous being that close to him all the time. And although he is trained, he is not tame.
I had a mechanical bear built at a company called Bischoff. It was a taxidermy company here in Hollywood. And the reason I went to a taxidermy company is I wanted real bear fur, and I wanted the head of a real bear. The problem was that we could never use this wonderful mechanical bear that we made because of the rain. One night, the mechanical bear was left out in the rain. It looked like the weather's report was that it was going to be a nice sunny day. And so for days, the makeup people and the hairdresser were combing this fur, trying to make it look decent. But we were lucky to get Chris George and Andy Prine, and the famous Joan McCall, and Richard Jaeckel.
No way. We tagged every one of those bears. Arthur Scott knows every bear that's in this forest. No way he could have missed one.
Okay, then Scott's the man I want to talk to. Now, you get him on the wire and get his ass out here.
Christopher George and I had a wonderful relationship. And I knew his wife from summer stock several years earlier. And so we sort of had a little bit of a nice feeling together as a group.
Yeah, Chris was so nice. He was handsome. He was always prepared. He was friendly. He was interesting. I have only good memories of working with Chris.
There wasn't a nicer guy in the world. He very handsome guy, you know, but no self-consciousness at all. A very giving actor, ready to do anything.
I can remember one thing when we did a love scene. I think we were under this kind of fur throw, and he kept trying to cover me up. I guess, you know, he was very concerned with his wife not seeing me too revealed with him lying on this cabin floor. So he kept making sure that this furry throw was up over me.
He was a guy who was very serious about what he was doing and wanted this to be a good movie and wanted to do the very best job he could. And it's wonderful to work with an actor who has that kind of sincerity and that kind of enthusiasm about his work.
Well, I just made him a good old boy. I assumed he was a war veteran, helicopter pilot, and I saw him as an easygoing, laid-back guy who got caught up in the fever of the time and then eventually got his bloodlust up and got on board and eventually sacrificed himself to save his buddy.
I'm above R4 in zone 821.
Okay, stay there. No, listen, on second thought,
Get the hell out of there. He might be coming back for the rest of his meal. That's just what I'm hoping for. Look, I got a rope. I'm going to put him around his neck and haul him through the woods to where you fellas are. With any
any luck, our friend's gonna follow.
negative. I'm leaving right now. I'll meet you halfway.
Richard Jaeckel was a very serious guy and a very special man. We would all go out drinking afterwards. Christopher George and Andy and myself and some of the others. Richard Jaeckel would work out. He would brought his weights with him, and he would work out every day.
He always looked great. He was in great shape and just a terrific guy, an incredible film history. I mean,
We were very fortunate to have him as part of our team.
We've been faced with the hardships that most motion picture crews find when filming out in the woods. We end up going 25, 30 miles into total wilderness, having to cut our way into the woods to find locations and to do certain shots.
You know, there are filmmakers and there are movie makers. He was a filmmaker. He knew cinema. You know, he knew what works in the frame.
We shot this one sequence in and around a natural watershed. It required about a mile and a half hike up a muddy hillside to reach. And the camera had to be in the position right in the water to get the shots I required.
Bill Girdler was this church-going, straight, really great dude. But we meshed, oddly enough. We really liked each other as guys, you know, and we used to go bike riding, get on our motorcycles, run around all over the place.
Bill was our friend for up until he passed away, practically. I do have a funny story about him. You know, Bill was very macho. He was a macho movie maker, and he came and he spent the night at our house one night, but he wouldn't sleep in the bed that I gave him because they had flowered sheets on it. He wanted stripes or plain colors, so I said, "Oh, all right, I'll change your sheets for you."
And the last time I saw him, I was looping some dialogue over at CBS, and he was outside the control room. And I looked through the glass and saw him and ran out. And he said, "I'm on my way to the Philippines to scout a buddy movie about drugs." And he said, "You're going to be one of the guys, and I got another guy I want to be it, and we're going to go make this movie." And that was the last time I saw him. He was killed on that scouting trip.
I was never as shocked in my life.
William Girdler's death came to me as a real shock, because here is a guy who really had ambitions to do certain things with low budget filmmaking. What I heard was that his plane or a helicopter went into some high tension wires in the Philippines and killed him.
He did somebody a favor in scouting locations, and he went up in a helicopter that was being piloted by a student pilot, and they went under a high wire line, and the helicopter exploded, and they never found anybody. Well, Billy was bright enough to become another Spielberg. We were accused by most of the reviewers as ripping off Jaws.
It was the first rip-off of Jaws. well done, I think the best done of the rip-offs, in my personal opinion.
I get a kick out of reading some of the old reviews that say, you know, it's like a line-by-line rip-off of Jaws. It really isn't if you follow the script. But the basic concept is some kind of a creature that people are close to terrorizes them. You know, yes, very similar.
They didn't have an exposition scene that would back up the fear of the animal. You know, we just had an animal that killed a couple of campers. That's very bad, but we didn't understand it. So I improvised Robert Shaw's shark speech, you know, about the sinking of the Indianapolis and the guys who were left in the water.
If this ain't all ironic. You know, in NAM, I zapped about 100, maybe 200 people. Called them so it wouldn't get personal. But it did get personal, anyway. So I stopped counting and tried to stop caring.
And I simply improvised it on the set, and I think it was the highlight of the movie, actually.
Ed Montoro took the footage that we had shot. It was like a demo of what we were doing so far. He took the footage to David Beagleman at Columbia Pictures. David Beagleman was overwhelmed with what he saw and made an instant deal on the footage that he had seen. And so we had the foreign distribution. David Beagleman picked up all worldwide rights, everything but US and Canada. And so we had international distribution. Ed Montoro was going to distribute the picture domestically, so we were all set with distribution.
It was released by Columbia Pictures worldwide, and Japan loved it. It was a Japanese movie made here in the United States, and they loved it. They ate it up. In Europe, Germany, we did very well.
I mean, it went through the roof. As you probably know, it was the top grossing independent picture the year it played. It was #1.
I don't remember the exact figures, but I can say it was like $34 million in 1 year.
I thought it would be very successful right away, and tried to get them to give me a piece of it in lieu of salary, which they wisely did not do. Yes, I was sure of it, even with the partial script when we started. I knew that Bill Girdler knew what he was doing, knew what he wanted, and we had this beautiful bear, and I knew it would make money. Yeah, for sure. It still is making money.
It was fun to be in a hit film, and I remember the funniest thing for me was when my cousin came to visit, and she wore a sweater that I wore, a white sweater that I wore in the movie. And she screamed out in the movie theater. She went to see Grizzly, "There's my sweater! I wore that sweater!" It was a big thing to her, you know, to wear a costume from the film.
And what happened with Ed Montoro is that what happens with a lot of people in business is that you become greedy.
We were not getting paid. And I politely asked Ed Montoro, you know, we had an agreement. What agreement? We agreed. We had witnesses. You know, I had people sit around at the booths in the restaurant where we were. It was actually the cafe of the motel where we were staying. I had them all witness the agreement, just in case. And he still refused to show us what the picture was doing. I only knew what the picture was doing for what I read in Variety. I never knew firsthand from reports, from box office reports. He wouldn't show them to us.
All of a sudden, millions and millions of dollars are coming into the coffer, and he sees a way to keep it all for himself rather than give it to our company, which the company being David and myself. He made excuses that we overspent. And we did overspend because he asked us to overspend. He wanted like we had the London Philharmonic doing the music for Grizzly, and there was no reason to do that in stereophonic, zero reason to do that. but we agreed. And my mistake was, and it was my mistake, my fault, I should have said, sign off on it. We're going over budget, sign off on it, sign off on it. And I didn't do that. And I certainly learned from that. I never made that mistake again.
Our group owned 40% of the picture. It was a 40-60 deal with Montoro. Montoro was going to finance the movie and distribute the picture, get his distribution fee, which was 35%, which we increased to 40%. So we let him take his 40% distribution fee plus 40% of the profits. We were going to get 60% of the profits among the group of us.
He felt that he didn't owe us any money. And he did, because the film made so much money. We did the movie for $1 million or under. It was under $1 million.
Well, the picture, according to my calculations, grossed enough for us to have earned $8 million out of our share.
He tried to stop us from getting our due desserts. And we went to court.
Harvey Flaxman and I were in court every day over a 3-week period with this tremendous lawsuit suing to get our share of the profits.
Ed Montoro had this huge, major LA law firm, and David and I chose a couple of very hotshot new guys who were not theatrical attorneys, but were corporate attorneys, and they went ahead and they learned the whole business.
We won the lawsuit, hands down, on every point, every point. The judge who became the Supreme Court Justice of California, the top judge later on, white-haired, handsome judge, looked like John Forsythe, chewed Ed Montoro out. You know, he's not around anymore, so I can talk about him. Called him every name in the book. That was legal.
We won on every single point. And that was a very good feeling, and we got our money.